Hello class, welcome to Algebra Concepts Lesson 2-1, which is all about writing and interpreting equations. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to create and interpret equations that describe relationships. All right, example 1, let's practice writing an equation for a sentence. So this is going to feel pretty similar to what we did back in chapter 1 at the very beginning, where we were writing expressions. Now we're writing equations, which means that we add in an equal sign. Okay, so write an equation for the sentence. 20 minus the quotient of 7 and x is the same as twice x. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to maybe try some color coding with you guys. I'm going to say the first thing I have, the first piece is 20 minus. So the way I would write that, I would say 20 and then minus. Then the next section is the quotient of 7 and x. Remember, as soon as you have of, that means that it's going to, as soon as you have of after another operation word, that means that the next two things are grouped together. So quotient of 7 and x. That means 7 and x are grouped together, and quotient means division. So you can write it like this. You can write it as a fraction like that, or you could write it like this. Okay? Either way works. I'm going to stick just with the fraction for now. All right, then I have is the same as. Is the same as is another way of saying equals. Okay? And the last part would be twice x. Twice x. So twice x would be 2 times x. So that's my final equation there, where I would say 20 minus 7 over x equals 2x. And that is all that we're looking for here. We're not asking you to solve it or anything. We are just asking you to write it out. Okay? So with that in mind, I want you to look at this one, and I want you to write an equation for the sentence. 4 times a number less 10 is equal to 16. Okay, and then you have options A, B, C, and D. I want you to look at those, and I want you to decide which one of those is the correct answer, because there's only one correct answer. 4 times a number less 10 is equal to 16. Good luck. All right, hopefully you figured out 4 times a number means 4x. A number less 10, less means that we're going to subtract, and then is equal to 16 would leave you with letter A. Okay, if you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. All right, let's move on to example 2, where you write an equation from a word problem. So of 799 teens surveyed about what they do online, some use a social network. Of those on a social network, 430 of them say people their age are mostly kind online, and the remaining 193 do not. Write an equation to find the number of teens surveyed who are not on a social network. So let's figure out kind of like what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out how many teens are not on a social network. So I'm going to use n to represent our variable. It's the number of teens not on social network. Okay, all of your equations are going to involve a variable of some sort, okay? For this one, I'm using n. All right, and then the other pieces of information I know is that there are 799 teens total, okay? Usually when we have a total, that means we set something equal to our total. So I'm going to say equals my total, 799. And the way that I figure out what is equal to the 799, I know that there are 430 that say people are mostly kind, plus the 193 people that say people are not mostly kind. And then that would leave us with n number of people that aren't on a social network at all. Okay, so if we break this down, this first part are people on social network. And then N is the people not on a social network. Okay, so out of 799 people that use that were surveyed for what they do online, some of them use a social network, some of them don't. And this is how you would set up the problem to figure out how many people actually use a social network and how many don't, okay? Hopefully that makes some sense. If not, please be sure to ask for some help. I am happy to help you. Okay, now I have another question for you to solve. E2 has read 12 of the 32 chapters in his assigned book. He plans to finish the book by reading C chapters for 8 days until the book is due. Which equation best represents the situation? So go ahead, look at your 4 options and figure out which of these seems like the one that actually represents what E2 is doing. Good luck. All right, so hopefully as you looked at these problems, you thought about, okay, if he's already read 12 of the chapters and he's reading 8 more every day, you know that you would add those together in order to get the total 32. So if I look at that, that means that I can cross off letter A because I'm subtracting them, and letter D because I'm subtracting them. So then I want to think, if I look at letter B and letter B is the number of chapters divided by 8, and letter C is the number of chapters times 8. So if you think about that, if he's reading C chapters for 8 days, you would multiply that answer. So letter C would be our solution. If you have questions about that, please reach out for help. I'm happy to help you. All right, example 3, write an equation with multiple variables. Okay, so translate the sentence into a formula. And if we look at this sentence, it is the perimeter of a rectangle is twice the sum of the length and the width. Okay, so first, the title of the slide is write an equation with multiple variables. That means I'm going to have more than one letter. So my first letter is going to be the length. I like to use a cursive L so that way I don't mistake it for a 1. Okay, so I'm going to use a cursive L for length and then W for width. And then I'm going to use P for perimeter. So I'm going to say the perimeter of a rectangle is. That word is another way of saying equals. Okay, then I have twice the sum of. So twice, and then since it's sum of, this is grouping the length and the width. Okay, so my answer would be the perimeter equals 2 times, and then in parentheses, the length times the width. Okay. If you have questions about that, please be sure to ask for some help. I know I'm kind of going quickly through this. That's because we just went through it in chapter 1. So quite a bit will be review, but you might have some questions. Feel free to ask. All right, now it's your turn to identify which of these equations is correct. This has to do with motors. So the horsepower of a motor is the product of the motor speed and the torque divided by 5,252. The horsepower of a motor is the product of the motor speed and the torque divided by 5,252. So go ahead and look at these options and see which one do you think best represents this this problem. Good luck. All right, hopefully you said, okay, horsepower is, so that's going to be H equals. Product means multiply. And then the motor speed, which is represented by capital M, and the torque. So motor speed and torque multiplied together. So that means that I can rule out letter A and rule out letter D. Okay, so the motor speed and the torque are divided by 5,252. So that means letter B has to be my answer. because the motor speed and the torque needs to be on the top of my fraction so it can be divided by that 5,252. Okay? If you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. And let's move on. Example 4, write a sentence for an equation. So if we are given this equation right here, how would we write a sentence for it? So I'm going to write out a couple of options. I'm also going to just verbally say a couple of options, okay? So make sure if you are kind of zoning out right now, refocus, because I'm not going to write every single thing down right this second. So the equation, we have 2z minus 1 equals 5. What I just said there, that's one possible answer. However, I prefer that you would say 2 times z. So that way I know you know that when there's no operation written with symbols, you know it's multiplication. So 2 times z minus, or you could say less, 1. Or you could say subtracted by 1. Equals, or you could say is, 5. Okay, so 2 times z minus 1 is 5. 2 times z less 1 equals 5. The product of 2 and z minus 1 equals 5. So there are lots of different options. I'm not going to write all of them down, but as you can hear from what I'm saying, you have a lot of different options. Okay, now I want you to read through these and figure out which of these is an actual answer for the way that you could write out this equation in a verbal equation. Good luck. All right, for this first one, hopefully you got letter A, 6 times the number z minus 15 equals 45. Okay, that is your answer. If you have questions on why it's not B, C, or D, please be sure to reach out for some help. Happy to help you. I want you to try one more. I want you to write a sentence for this equation. Whoa, scrolled a little too far. Good luck. All right, hopefully you said letter C, the quantity of y plus 3 squared is 25. Okay, the reason you need to use the quantity of is because we used parentheses, which are grouping symbols, and we represent those by saying the words quantity of. Okay. Example 5, our last example for today, is writing a sentence for the equation. So here I would say 3 times the quantity of, because remember we just talked about grouping symbols. When there are parentheses, you're going to say quantity of y plus 1 is 12. So 3 times the quantity of y plus 1 is 12, or I could say, let's see, 3 times the quantity of y increased by 1 equals 12. Okay, so again, there are multiple options here. The kind of keywords are the numbers, so 3, 1, and 12. You need to have some sort of word to represent the addition, some sort of word to represent the equal sign, and some sort of way to tell me you know that the y plus 1 are grouped together, okay? If you have questions on this or anything else from this lesson, please don't hesitate to reach out for some help. I am happy to help you. I hope you guys have a great day.